is a true expert in the world of firearms law and defense. Timothy Forshey is a criminal defense attorney with over 30 years legal experience, having worked in firearms law, family law, personal injury, and criminal defense. He's a former judge where he provided over criminal jury trials, over order of protection hearings, criminal arraignments, easy for me to say, and sentencing hearings. Tim is also a member of Mensa and serves on the board of directors of both the National Law Enforcement Firearms Instructors Association and the Arizona State Rifle and Pistol Association. Tim brings a wealth of knowledge to everything he does. Please join me in welcoming the highly experienced, dedicated, and passionate Tim Forshey.
Hi guys, is this working okay? All right, I don't know if anybody's even listening to the speakers at this point because it's a nice day. You should be doing something fun. There's been a lot of constitutional scholars ahead of me, so I'm not going to try to impress you with my brain power because it's minimal today, so let's just have some fun a little bit. So I've been a concealed carry instructor for almost 30 years. I do about 3 classes every single month, average about 100 students per month, so I added that up one time and it's over 60,000 students. I've had several of you come up here during the event and say I taught your class several years ago. You probably heard the same crappy jokes there that I did last week, so not much any changes there. One thing one of my predecessors, my friend and colleague Mark Victor, said at the end of his speech there, he said he's the only law firm in the state that does self-defense. With all due respect to Mark, that's not true. I do as well. I've got a law firm that's about 2 miles northeast of here, and I've been doing it for 35 years. So there's a lot of people out there that can help you guys. It doesn't mean anyone's necessarily better than the other, but make sure you have somebody. It's always nice to get a consult before you get in trouble, right? It's much better to stay out of trouble than it is to try to get out of trouble. Does everybody understand that? All right. As I look around this crowd, I see a lot of people carrying open, which makes me really delighted to be an American. It makes me glad I have libertarian values. I think it's awesome. But let me tell you, I've been doing this for a long time, and I would say 95% of my clients that get in serious felony trouble because of a gun, it largely starts because they were carrying open. If you're carrying open, you're a target. You're a target of bad guys that want to shoot people with guns before they get in trouble, and you're a target of people that don't like the fact that you're carrying an open gun. And they can make they can lie to the cops and say you pointed the gun at them, and now you've got to basically prove you didn't do that. So it's always better to follow what I'm going to tell you guys. Is just a brief little speech I'm going to give that I call the 3 C's, okay? If you can remember these 3 rules, you're most likely never going to need a gun. You're certainly never going to need a gun lawyer. So rather than telling you how you're going to afford a gun lawyer and you should sign up for FLP or Attorneys on Retainer or US Law Shield, all those are good organizations. I was on the board of the USCCA for 11 years, great organization. I prefer FLP over all of those, but I would simply tell you, make sure that you get some sort of coverage. You do not want to be paying $250,000 to a lawyer if you find yourself in serious trouble, because that's what happens. People lose their houses, they lose their retirement. It is horrific, the financial ruin it'll put you into. So find some way to alleviate that, and the best way is to get some sort of insurance program going. Again, I favor FLP. I'm their representative. I think it's a better program for less money than the others, but find something that works for you and get it, okay? Let's talk about the 3 C's really quickly. The first C is very, very important, and it is concealment. If you're carrying concealed, what's that mean? A lot of people say it means, well, that means they can't see your gun. No, that is not enough, okay? Concealment means very simply, no one knows you're carrying a gun. Just because they can't see your gun, if I can see you touching your gun, if I hear your gun hit the door jamb when you walk through the door jamb at the mall to get on the elevator, if I smell Hoppy's number 9 on your hands when you're standing in an elevator with me, I don't need to see your gun to know that you're armed, okay? So first of all, make sure you understand what concealment means. It means that no one knows you're armed, okay? Make sure that you're carrying concealed. Second would be courtesy. And what do I mean by that? Well, basically, don't be the guy that honks your horn at the jerk that cuts you off on the freeway. Do not flip people off, okay? If I know I'm right, I'm going to admit that I'm wrong. I'm going to say, I'm so sorry I got in your way. Can I please pay for your parking? All right, I am fat. My wife is being a jerk. Can I please pay for your meal? It'll be the best 35 bucks I ever spent, because if I get into an argument, that leads to pushy shovey, that leads to smacky smacky, that leads to knives and guns, which leads to lawyers, jails, and morgues, right? Maybe just admit that you're wrong when you know you're not wrong. Pray the person gets a hemorrhoid the size of a volleyball when they wake up tomorrow morning, and call it a day. So being courteous means even if you know you're right, you admit that you're wrong and go away, go the other direction. That will save you a great deal of heartache, okay? So that's what I mean by courtesy. Just don't get into arguments. You're right, I'm an idiot, can I please pay for your meal? That is hugely helpful. Last one is common sense, which, as we can all agree, probably anymore is not that common. What do I mean by common sense? Well, if anybody's ever taken a class from the great instructor John Farnham, I've been taking class from shooting instructors almost for 40 years now. I've been a competitive shooter for over 40 years. John Farnham is one of my favorite instructors, and he always says something, and I'm going to curse, and I apologize in advance, but this is what we call Farnham's axiom. Don't do stupid shit with stupid people in stupid places. I would say 90+% of my clients violated at least one of those, if not all three of those rules. So that's a pretty smart one to start. Second of all, get training. Buying a gun and putting it in your nightstand, buying a gun, putting it in your glove box is a recipe for the morgue or the prison cell, okay? You need to be trained. That doesn't mean you have to be the world's greatest shooter, but you have to be competent. You don't have to be able to race in the Indy 500 to be safe to drive your car to work, right? But you have to be competent. And frankly, as a firearms instructor for both law enforcement and civilians, I see a lot more incompetent shooters than I see competent shooters. So get good training and stick with it. Also, document that training. Lawyers like Mark and I can use that training in court to show the jury how much time, money, and effort you devoted to staying out of trouble. Juries appreciate that. You don't ever want to go in front of a jury, but if you have to go in front of a jury, you want to be able to explain to the jury why you're there, and you're there because you had no choice but to use lethal force, okay? Last thing about common sense, and I'll let you guys go, is that I've heard a couple people today talking about the law, and they always talk about the law in absolutes. Be very, very wary of that. The law is very rarely an absolute. It's almost always a shade of gray. Right? So remember that. Interpretation is the key. And I've heard a lot of people say, I heard one guy say that there are 14 circumstances under which you can use lethal force. All right? What I would say is this: I don't care how many circumstances where I can use lethal force. I'm only concerned about the situations where I must use lethal force. Everybody talks about the stand your ground law and the castle doctrine. Well, if somebody breaks into my house, I can shoot them. Really? What if it's a Girl Scout selling cookies and she pushed open your door and walked in to say cookies? Well, I guess I can kill her and mount her head on my wall because you said I could. The castle doctrine says I can. It's not can, guys. It's must. You start a complete nightmare down that waterfall with finances. You're going to lose half your friends. You're going to lose your job. You may lose your home. You may lose your retirement pension. It is horrific, and you don't want to do it in the first place. So it's not when you can do it. It's when you cannot avoid having to do it in order to maintain your life. All right? If anybody has any questions, I'll answer questions for 1 minute or so. Seeing no hands, I will let you get back to the program. Thanks for listening. I appreciate it. Be safe.
Such important points. Thank you so much, Tim Forshey.